questions. And with that, I'll hand over to our Executive Director, Dr. Birol.
Thank you very much, Jethro. Greetings from International Energy Agency headquarters, dear colleagues. Today, we are in front of you with another report, the Global Energy Review 2025 report. This report shows the strengths of the IEA. Our main strength is our data. And we have data at the IEA on all fuels, all technologies, and all countries as far as the energy is concerned. We have data for the oil production by any field in major oil-producing countries, gas consumption in all countries, coal trade, electricity prices, copper mine investments across the energy sector. And this report brings all this data together for the year 2024 and try to make sense. What does it mean for the next years to come, for governments, for energy industry, for academia, and for all decision makers and interested parties? We say at the IEA, data always wins. And in this context where we are in our world today, in the 2025, where there are so many geopolitical uncertainties persist, and where there are so many different narratives on energy, driven by different motivations exist, we believe it is important to have real data and discuss the energy issues based on real objective data. Therefore, I would like to thank my colleague Lara Kozzi and the entire IEA team to bring all this data around the world together to make this GER, as we call it, the Global Energy Review 2024, together. Now, I would like to share a couple of key points when I look at the report, some takeaways, which I thought might be important to underline. The very first one is, dear colleagues, when we look at the numbers, we see global energy demand surges, very strong growth in 2024. It is about 2 times faster than the historical averages. In the last 10 years, global energy demand on average increased about 1%, and now 2024, it increased more than 2 percentage points. Why it is happening? It is happening mainly driven by the economic growth, economic development coming from the emerging and developing countries, which is a usual well-established trend. But also, we see after years and years of decline of energy demand in advanced economies, we see a return to growth, which we have not seen since many years. If we put the COVID years aside for a moment, for example, for the European Union, we see energy demand increase for the first time since the year 2017. And it is, of course, for North America and other parts of the advanced economies. And if you look at a bit further, the numbers, why global energy demand growth is so strong, we see one very clear trend: electricity growth. Global electricity demand increased 2 times higher than the global energy demand. Now, In our World Energy Outlook, we published last November, we said that even though oil and gas will remain as essential energy carriers, we see the footsteps, we hear the footsteps of the age of electricity coming. And this is yet another example that the energy demand is growing, but the electricity demand increases 2 times higher than the energy demand growth, driven by industrial growth, by air conditioning, the loss of air conditioning, the AI, data centers, and also with the electric cars penetration coming through. So this is pinning the electricity demand growth so strongly around the world. And we also see in our global energy review of the IEA that the big chunk of this electricity demand growth is met by renewables, solar and wind, but also nuclear power. And the rest comes from natural gas and coal. So perhaps one word on renewables, very impressive. Last year, our numbers show about 700 gigawatts of renewable capacity is added to the global electricity fleet. And my colleagues told me that it is the 22 years in a row that renewables are breaking records in terms of their capacity additions. We also see that the nuclear is coming strongly. And again, in our nuclear report this January, we claim, and this report, our Global Energy Review report, once again underlines the very fact that we expect 2025, this year, we will see the highest nuclear electricity generation in the history, the peak of nuclear electricity generation. Dear colleagues, maybe my colleague Laura Cosi will explain more in depth, but I want to mention one more point on the energy demand growth, why it is so strong. In addition to the economic and social structural reasons, there is one other factor which pushes the energy demand growth, especially electricity demand growth, which is the rising temperatures. The heat waves around the world, in turn, pushes the electricity demand growth, which in turn gives a push to, in some countries like China and India, coal consumption growth. Another point I would like to make is on oil. Electricity is important, but oil is still the most important strategic commodity as far as the energy markets are concerned. The year 2024 is very important for oil forecasters, for institutions around the world that look at the oil markets closely. Mid-2023, my colleagues in the oil market division came up with a forecast for 2024 that the global oil demand growth will slow down and the growth for 2024 will be less than 1 million barrels per day. And this was, to be very frank, an outlier when you look at the other forecasters, financial institutions, banks, think tanks, some international institutions. Most of them were saying almost 2 million barrels per day for 2024. And it remained like that. And I have checked several times with my colleagues, are you sure less than 1 MBD? Such prestigious institutions still say it's about 2 or close to 2, because for 1 year, 100% difference is a big difference. They insisted on these numbers, and today, when we look at the final 2024 oil demand growth, it was less than 1 million barrels per day. It was about close to 0.9 million barrels per day. So kudos to my colleagues on that, and it is something that we all need to learn from this example. Stick to data, stick to the realities. Of course, oil is and will stay in the many years to come as a strategic commodity for the energy markets. But as a result of the slowdown of oil demand growth, we see for the first time the share of oil in the global energy mix went below 30%. This is mainly, dear colleagues, driven by China. Because in the last 10 years, China alone was responsible more than 60% of global oil demand growth. And Chinese economy is slowing down and changing its nature, becoming lighter, plus the penetration of electric cars meant Chinese oil demand growth is very slow. If you take out the petrochemical sector consumption, China's oil demand is almost flat. So we will see the implications of that in the next years to come. Now, another important is oil. Another important fossil fuel is natural gas. We have seen that the natural gas demand is also very strong, and our numbers in the Global Energy Review says that the global gas demand increased last year about 115 BCM. Compared to historical averages, it is significantly higher, and it is mainly driven by providing input to electricity generation. Dear colleagues, I talk about the electricity, oil, gas, and nuclear renewables. I would like to mention one other item before concluding my remarks, which is the emissions. Global emissions last year increased less than 1%, but still did increase. If we want to find the silver lining, we see that there is a continuous decoupling of economic growth from emissions growth. So it is this decoupling is now cemented last year, even though global economy increased in a healthy way, global emissions growth was less than 1%, less than what we have seen before. And this is mainly as a result of the increasing share of renewables, stronger nuclear penetration, and the increasing number of electric cars and other technologies. Dear colleagues, to finish, again, this is data. And again, we say at the IEA, data always wins. And when we look at the data and the global energy picture, especially the geopolitical uncertainties increasing day by day, I think we have all the reasons to remember the IEA's core mission, energy security, how important it is, and it will remain to be very important. But energy security evolves. There are traditional energy security concerns, like oil and gas, and there are also new energy security concerns, risks coming. So therefore, we have decided to hold a Future of Energy Security Summit this year in April in London, together with the UK government, bringing all the governments, energy industry, academia, researchers together to understand the current, today's, and tomorrow's energy security challenges and how we can cooperate internationally to address those problems. Perhaps I should here thank Sir Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of UK, for holding and attending this summit, and also Secretary of State Ed Miliband for the great cooperation between IEA and the UK government, bringing many governments and other stakeholders together. With this, I would like to thank once again my colleague Lara Kozi and her great team to bring this wealth of data together in an objective way to provide a basis for discussions for the governments and beyond.